Oh. It's only 5 months away from my birthday. So what a better way to celebrate that than to buy myself a new set of carbon wheels from XM Carbon Sports in China. Let's unbox these babies. Look at that. There's my accessories. And here's the wheels. Let's see in here. Oh, we got a fancy brochure. This kind of reminds me of the 80s when they used to put, or the 90s, where they'd put brochures in. Interesting. Oh, there's a little bit of damage in the bottom of the box. I'll close up that. Of course, Chinese wheels got to come with the bag. It must be a law in China that you got to produce some sort of bag like this with your wheels. Don't really see any damage off the top. The first thing that's striking me here is not how light they are, but how massive these wheels are. This is insane. Another bag off for the front wheel. Wow. I can't tell you how big these things are, and it probably doesn't show up in 2 dimensions on your screen. The top wheel divider, let's call it, made out of flimsy cardboard, came busted already. And if you look in the box, the lower one came like this, crushed. I'm going to give XM Carbon Sports a D for their packaging. I think you can do better. The test of a quality of a wheel box or frame box is whether you keep them. You can see I've got the wind space and an Elite Wheels box from a previous video. This one is heading straight to recycling. The ordering process might not be as smooth and streamlined as some of the bigger manufacturers with storefronts such as Windspace, Uleo, or Elite Wheels, which I've ordered from in the past. I contacted them via email and spoke to Alan. We had a couple of back and forths because I wanted some extras. Process was absolutely fantastic. Communication was great. So no issues there. Just if you're in a real hurry, you got to remember too, once I paid for these, it took 20 days to make the wheels, and they said 15 days to ship, but they did it via UPS. It took roughly 10 days to me. So 30 days total. I'll post the complete specs that I got from XM Carbon Sports. Let's do cost. The cost of these wheels with solid rim breads, which was an extra, was $860. I bought $67 worth of accessories. Shipping was $125. A lot of manufacturers do it for free. And then there was a 5% surcharge, which I think was about $53 US for using PayPal, which you don't have a choice. And getting them in Canada here, there's always a tax. The duty was an extra about $25 US, which is pretty reasonable for the land of taxes known as Canada. So the total cost was $1,120 US, which I'm going to hope, if these wheels perform, is an absolute bargain.
This is the invoice from Carbon Sports, less the Canadian duty. Now you know you're on the struggle bus when I keep calling it Carbon Sports rather than Carbon Speed. I got to admit, I'm a little under the weather. You can probably tell it in my voice. Freeze this if you want a blown up version.
Let's look and see what my $67 in accessories got me. 4 replacement SAPM CX-ray spokes with replacement brass nipples. Interesting they went with brass, but I'm not complaining too much. rim tape. Now, someone is going to ask me, why in the heck did you get rim tape when you've got a solid rim bed? Well, the reason is it was $15 for the rim tape and these hookless valves, which is an absolute bargain, especially considering this reserve tape, which a lot of my shop mechanic buddies recommend, is roughly, let's say, $25 US. I also ordered a spare free hub. I'm not sure yet what my test bike build's going to be. I'm pretty sure it's going to be SRAM XDR, which is on the wheels right now, but I got a spare microspline one. And like I said, this was all 67 bucks. That's totally reasonable. If I compare the microspline to a DT Swiss, they're slightly different. There's a little bit more sealing or another flange in here. So these likely will not work between hubs. Not sure who designed this packaging, but the number one rule about packaging is that the item should not obscure the text. And interestingly enough, maybe they did that for good reason. They say maximum airflow with 4 holes and a 4mm hex. I can assure you of something. I'm well over 50 years old and I can identify a hole. And I count 1 hole in these. Rear wheel. If you can't see that through there, that's 754 grams. Front wheel. You can't see that, 624. Considering they've claimed 1,400 grams plus or minus 25 grams, they're bang on and have exceeded expectations. Usually it goes the other way when they're doing this. For craps and giggles, YouTube seems to make this a capital offense, but there is no grease in here between the end cap and the outside of the bearing. It can be fixed quite easily. Your free hub looks to be your standard DT Swiss type knockoff. This is XDR build coming. What I like about these springs is they have a, let's call it a spring flange seat on them, unlike the DT Swiss design. Your star ratchets, they're hollow and these are 36 tooth. I had the option to upgrade to 54 tooth, but I passed on that. I think these will be more durable in the long run. Not like I'm involved in any sprints. Then you have a lower spring with a seat on it again, a spacer, and there's not a lot of grease in there, but I can solve that with the DT Swiss special grease. The stock valve stems could have been just slightly longer depending on what type of pump you had, but that doesn't matter for me because I'm going to be using click valve with these. These valve stems have different machining inside them. If you look at the gap there on the click valve I've installed, this isn't going to work for me, so I'm likely going to replace them. So be careful about these. I'm not sure if they're up to the quality of other valve stems, because on the rear wheel that I just installed the click valve on, this spacing is different. It should be exactly the same. We're going to see how well these wheels do in a consumer level review of their build quality.
XM, I would recommend including the specifications to which you build your wheels to. That way you can be held accountable. This is an example of one provided by Elite Wheels, but in this case, Inspector 001 was likely on his smoke break and didn't quite do all the work they had to make sure, because these wheels were out of spec when I received them.
I went over both rims in great detail, and the finish looks great, at least comparable to any other carbon rim I've got from Leo or Elite Wheels. You can see that the inside rim bed appears to be sanded. The bead and bead hooks seem relatively uniform. And these are quite thick. These are 4.6 to 4.7 mils, which should give you a fair bit of impact resistance. And if you listen to the claims of some other companies like Specialized, should also give you pinch flat resistance too.
Genoa and I teamed up to go through and measure the rims and put them through the MAE Biker ringer-a-row, and their dimensions are as advertised.
The front wheel was well in true, and the dish was excellent. Lateral and radial runouts, as well as the dish, were all 0.2 millimeters. Once again, pretty darn good. Measuring the tensions on the front wheel, it was also excellent, with most of the spokes being within 10%. If I compare these to the Elite or Uleo wheels I previously reviewed, this is the winner. Spoke tensions are uniform on the left and right sides of the rear wheel. The issue is that the tension on the right side seems quite low when I compare it to previous wheels I've looked at. When you combine these CX-ray spokes with this device for measuring, you're going to get lower readings than other spokes because these are quite thin and flexy. But amongst CX-ray or their equivalents from Alpina, DT Swiss, or Pillar, this is the lowest reading I've got of any of these thin steel spokes. No spoke twist measured on either wheel. Install.
In my extensive experience destroying rim strips, it's my experience that you're going to damage the rim strip when you're taking the tire off the bead rather than installing it onto the bead. But with these, there's exactly no worry about that. I'm going to have another video on solid rim breads or no spoke holes coming up. But this is a pure pleasure, not worrying about the bloody rim tape. One critique I do have about this rim profile is I'd like to see the center channel a little bit deeper for tire install and removal. I did a video recently on TPU tubes, and this Pathfinder 50 mil on this 21 mil internal rim plumped out to 49.5. Let's see what it does on this bad boy. That's shocking. I think because of the shoulder width, it comes out to 49.5 again. Just check this around the tire. Yeah, 49.7. $50. So it's not like there's a dramatic effect based on the width of the internals on this rim. Regrettably, we have encountered problem one. On the front rim, I was trying to put on this Thunderbird 2.25 to see if it got stretched out by this extra wide rim profile. The issue we got with my solid rim beds is, using my handy click valve and this compressor, I'm getting air out of the relief hole here. So somewhere in this, there's a failure. Now we can only hope to God it's the valve stem. I would say when you have rim tape, about 90% of the time it's the tape and not the valve stem. So we'll give this another try. Oh, thank God. It was just the valve stem I wet the bed on. Always try your valve stem if you've got an issue. Back to our regularly scheduled video. a Thunderbird on this, and I put it up to 30 psi, measures 55 mils. That's about right. These tire manufacturers say their tires are a certain size, and then we learn the truth.
You can look at some comparable wheels, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this, but obviously Specialized has just released their Terra Aeros. I love how they sit here and tell you that they're starting at 1,500. This is in Canada, but that's just for one wheel. These wheels are well over twice the price. Zipp has the 303, which is heavier, but this is the showstopper with this thing at twice the price, is the fact that it's hookless and you can only use certain tires based on their compatibility chart. That's a bunch of BS. If you go to China, Elite Wheels makes a pretty comparable wheel for about the same price when you include shipping. But
Bringing this home. And XM, if you're listening, these are minor quibbles rather than major showstoppers. Number one, I would consider packaging your wheels better. It'll save you some fuss down the road. Number two is I would consider, if you were redesigning this next one, to have a deeper centered channel in the section of your rim to make tire install just that much easier. Number three, you may want to look at your hubs here and consider an asymmetric hub or rim or something just to get the tensions up a little bit on this non-drive side of the rear wheel. But like I said, these are minor quibbles, and I haven't proved in the long term if these are issues. Regrettably, the long-term review of these wheels may take a while because they're not going on my trusty dusty Argon 18 Dark Matter from 2019. This bike's not really designed to fit this wide of tires, although I can get a 48.5 in there. It's not fair for the true, let's call it, potential of these wheels as far as the new wide gravel trends. I have bought a new bike, but that'll be a story for another video. It's apparently still on its way, so you're going to have to stay tuned. The other thing is I'm not going to give you a 3-ride review video. I'm going to put at least 500 kilometers on these gravel wheels before I render my opinion and final verdict. So with that, look, if you got a comment, you disagree with me, you got something to say, put it in the comments. You know the drill. Like, subscribe, and of course, ride hard because the weather is absolutely fantastic.